Today I'm reading an account from moonmausoleum.com. It's called The Bunyip and the Billabongs. It's an account about a truly held legend from Australia. So it begins here. G'day mates. The Bunyip and the Billabongs of the wild from Australia is a mythical creature rumored to be living in the lakes and swamps in the untamed Australian wilderness. What was the swamp creature that scared them all? Or rather, what is it? As the white settlers started to take land in the 1840 and 1850s in Australia, they started to observe something they didn't think they would, particularly near the southeast colonies like Victoria, New South Wales. They heard unknown cries in the night, found strange bones, and started taking notes of the new surroundings. But what was this newly discovered animal? This is something modern-day cryptozoologists still debate, even to this day and age. Most written down sightings we know of from the creature come from 1840 and 1850, when there were a collective hysteria almost and a hunt for this strange creature in this strange country. Perhaps the strange creature that the white settlers saw wasn't as newly discovered as the settlers claimed it to be, as there were many local stories from among the native Aboriginal Australians. There's proof of the monster. The much-debated skull from the alleged bunyip that is said to roam in the Australian swamps or billabongs is a half skull. It looks like a half-human skull, and I should probably try and post it on my community notes. I'll try and get a picture of it and post. I didn't think of it. Back in the early days of European settlement, the creature was thought of a native animal of Australia. And it's a photo from a museum, from Wikimedia, and it has the jaws of maybe a half boar and a half hound, with what looks like a very small, almost human skull. Kind of strange, but it isn't by any means. As the European settlers found skulls, they didn't know the origin of and displayed them in museums for people to behold the strange creatures of the New World. Writing sensationalist news articles about the animal and the dangers it posed for humans wandering in the wild, the native Aboriginals had a different story to tell about the bunyip that had haunted the billabongs long before any Europeans set foot on the ground. The evil spirit in Aboriginal mythology. The creature is part of traditional Aboriginal beliefs and stories throughout Australia. While its name varies according to tribal nomenclature, it sometimes comes up in their mythology and stories. The mere word bunyip is today most often translated as devil or evil spirit in the Down Under. The stories of the bunyip varies wildly from region to region. The tales of this strange and mythical swamp creature was told before the white settlers came, but what happened to the mythology and folklore of the native Aboriginals is an atrocity, and they got their whole culture and way of life wiped away for centuries and sometimes forever. So who really knows the true origins of the bunyip today? When the white settlers came, they mixed their own folklore into the mix, especially the Irish mythological monster Puka. Still, the ones keeping the tales of the bunyip alive today is the local legends that have been passed down for a long time. One of the origin stories of the legend claims that the monster was once a man whose name was Bunyip. He was banished from the good spirit Biami. This is what drove the man to become an evil spirit that lured his fellow tribesmen into the waters to eat them. Other stories of the creatures think that it is the remembrance of some sort of an extinct animal that used to live on the land, but now only exists in myths and legends. Perhaps it could even be seals that lost their way and ended up in the inland rivers. There are many theories today, but no one has really managed to claim to have cracked the code. I wish I had done some research on this, but I'm thinking it's probably better that I'm vague, because I'm by no means an expert to conversationalism anyway. If I had some knowledge, I really shouldn't be sharing it just, but superficially. So on a superficial level, I do remember seeing that there have been, seeing accounts written and stated that there have been other sightings of a creature just like this, the bunyip, in North America and South America, actually in the Western Hemisphere mostly. It's kind of interesting. The roaring screams of the bunyip from the billabongs, another section of the story. Most of the accounts describe the creature like a sea spirit, a river monster, or something of a dog or a seal. However, descriptions vary, and it is also described with feathers or like a starfish. What most agree on, though, is its amphibious traits, swimming in lakes, billabogs, rivers, and other forms of inland waters. The creature is described as highly dangerous if a human gets in its way. While most Aboriginal myths claim they are a nocturnal being feeding on crayfish, there are also many legends claiming it to prey on humans as well, especially small children and women. Although sightings of the creature are said to be rare, the sound of the monster is the most told about legend, and how many have claimed to recognize its existence. The bunyip supposedly makes a booming and roaring scream from the billabogs and swamps, sending shivers to everyone that are unfortunate enough to hear it. Children were told to never go swimming, so not to be taken by the bunyip, and the creature has now become a part of the cautionary tale for them. So then, the case of the Burrowang bunyip. It is not like the tales of the bunyip disappeared as the Aboriginal myths were silenced, and the white settlers got a better understanding for the wild and foreign country they found themselves in. So far up to modern times, accounts of the bunyip has been reported across the country. Even in the 1960s, there were tales about the swamp monster lurking in the deep south murky swamps. This is the case of Burrowang, a highland village southwest from Sydney, in the Southern Highland in New South Wales. With a permanent population of around 300 today, Burrowang is truly a quaint Aussie village from an older time. A number of the cottages and churches in the area date back to colonial times and hints at how it would have been back when the European settlers first arrived. Below the village of Burrowang, there is a large swamp that is the home of many rare creatures, and locals claim they've heard the sounds from the bunyip. There's also a tale of railway workers running away from the monstrous sounds coming from the swamps when they were working there in the 1930s, breathing new life into the legend. The Burrowang locals heard the roaring sounds from their local bunyip all up until they built a dam in 1974 and the sounds disappeared. Why? Did they push the wildlife away, and in that, the bunyip as well? Perhaps it was only something else making the sounds, but what? That is something the modern world perhaps is too late to figure out. Even today, the monster enthusiast comes to Burrowang in search for the strange creature no one really knows exists, but many claim to have heard bellowing from the depths of the swamps. So, that's that account. That was rather interesting. I'm going to try and upload the pictures that this account has on Moon Mausoleum. I hope I can just put them on my community posts. I'm going to try and upload them, and I'll have them probably early next week, if I can. Okay, the next account I'm going to read is also from the website Moon Mausoleum, and it's called The Haunted Barbie Doll in the Shrine on Pulau Ubin Island. This is also a legend story, so it's based on, realistic effects and people. What would you have wanted as an offering after your death? According to this Singaporean legend, this young girl wanted a Barbie doll to appease her spirit in her afterlife. This is the story of the haunted Barbie doll in the shrine on Pulau Ubin Island. On Pulau Ubin, a boomerang-shaped island in northwest Singapore, a peculiar yellow shrine still stands. Hidden away in the forest is one of the last remaining places in Singapore free from urban development, concrete buildings, and paved roads. People come to give offerings and pray for their good luck in gambling to the deity of a young German girl that died and remained on the island with only a haunted Barbie doll as comfort. Pulau Ubin used to be a bigger population here, bustling with different businesses like plantations and granite mining. The very word Pulau Ubin means granite island in Malay. Today the granite quarries are empty or at least abandoned, reclaimed by vegetation or filled up with water. The idyllic island of Pulau Ubin is now a well-known place to hike the trails and enjoy the nature in Singapore. The island used to have a few thousand settlers, but today there are not even 40 people left after the work in the quarries dried up. However, the one that still remains is the spirit of the German girl that to this day that to this day has a name unknown. Several attempts have been made to trace the family of the girl back to Germany, but lack of public records of the family has still not been found. Now considered a Taoist deity, the temple on Pulau Ubin is full of Taoist offerings as well as more unique offerings. I think Taoism is linked to Shintoism, which is a Japanese religion. Most notably, a haunted Barbie doll sits between the incense and the food offerings. People still pay tribute to the shrine and the haunted Barbie doll in the form of makeup, nail polish, mirrors, and small feminine things. This is to appease the girl who asked for the doll beyond the veil. Background for the haunted Barbie doll. At the start of the 1900s, uneasiness spread throughout Europe and a full-fledged war rippled through the rest of the world as well. Though World War I didn't quite reach Southeast Asia in full force as other places, the effects were still real for many of the European settlers in the colonies. Singapore, being a part of the British colonies, was not very German-friendly. During the 1910s, the island was home to two German families, the Brandts and the Mulligans, that ran coffee plantations, according to the legend, although the proper sources for this are missing. In July of 1914, the British started detaining Germans for security reasons as they were considered enemies to the state. A military force was sent to Pulau Ubin to detain the two German families residing there. The Germans were, according to the story, sent to a detention barracks on mainland Singapore, mainly in the Tenglan barracks. But the detaining would not go without a dramatic turn. A young daughter of one of the families became frightened and fled from the British forces into the wooded area and disappeared into the dark, never to be seen again. Days went by without finding her body, and when she finally was discovered by Bayonne's plantation workers, she was covered in ants. They concluded that she had died by falling down a cliff near one of the quarries that sustained the community on the island. The workers covered her body with sand and laid flowers on it. When they walked by the place, they said a prayer and lit incense for the girl. This was her resting place at Pulau Ubin until Chinese workers recovered the remains of the body and buried the girl on a hill above the quarry. Being a Roman Catholic, they placed her Jiangsu urn with a crucifix and a number of coins as well as a few strands of her hair. What happened to the family is still a mystery, but during the war, all German property was confiscated and their business halted. Today, only the ruins and foundation of the plantation can be seen. In some versions of the legend, it tells that the family returned to Pulau Ubin after the war, searching for the remains of her daughter, but couldn't find her tombstone due to language barriers. Little did they know, her remains were kept in the Chinese Taoist temple in an urn on the hill. Bitter and sad about it, they left Pulau Ubin in Singapore never to return, which is an odd addition to the legend, as the family supposedly managed a business on the island before the war, and it's weird that there suddenly were a language problem when they returned, supposedly to the same people that lived there before they were detained. She has since been addressed as Naudu Gu Nyang, meaning Daotuic Maiden. Sightings of her ghost by the local villagers at Pulau Ubin have kept the legend of the nameless girl alive, as well as the peculiar offerings to the shrine that eventually were erected in her honor. While the granite business was still alive in Pulau Ubin, a quarrying company built a more permanent shrine in 1974, which is a small yellow Chinese temple that still stands today. It is named Berlin Heiligtum, meaning Berlin Sanctuary. They transferred the lock of her hair and iron cross to the new temple, but when the man who helped to place the remains in the new vase in 1974 checked in 1990, it was already gone. At least that is one of the tales that this particular man told over many years. When the shrine was constructed over the grave, it became associated with good luck, especially for gambling, as rumors told about people winning the lottery after praying to the shrine. Therefore, gamblers from Singapore as well as Malaysia came to the shrine to make offerings in hope that the German girl would bless them with good luck. And today the offerings are perhaps more to a young girl's taste, with nail polish, makeup, perfume, and the now famous haunted Barbie doll. Today, a haunted Barbie doll is placed as an important object in the shrine to the German girl in an enclosed box. Although not haunted as many other objects are rumored to be, as in being possessed by the soul or a ghost, the origin of the doll is quite haunting. According to the legend, and this is a more recent one, the legend will have it that the haunted Barbie doll was requested by the girl herself beyond the grave. She requested it after she was already dead. This is the new legend. An unnamed islander from Pulau Ubin who had moved to Australia kept having these strange dreams back in 2007. He dreamt of a European-looking girl for 3 nights in a row that led him to a specific store with a specific Barbie doll. She asked for it to be placed at her altar back in Singapore. So when he found the same store and doll as he had dreamt of for so many nights, he bought the now haunted Barbie doll and brought it to the shrine. And over the many years, the haunted Barbie doll itself it has gained its own mysteries and haunted stories, giving new life to the story about the girl still not having crossed over from the immortal world entirely. But is this a legend of lies? So who was the girl? Was there ever a girl? There is today no human remains in the grave as a definitive proof of the legend. Still, many people take the legend at face value today, but that is overlooking all the different tales that have been told throughout the years. Dr. William L. Gibson is one of the people that really took a deep dive into the legend, and by just comparing the sources found many discrepancies to the story told today in his excellent and detailed research that you can read here. Many sources point to one man named Chia Young Keng, a local on Pulau Ubin. I'm going to defer to read any part of the research until I'm done here. The same man that claimed to be there when they transferred the lock of hair and the cross to the new temple. He has changed his testimony about the girl several times over the years, from claiming that the girl's parents were Dutch, for example, but seeing that Dutch citizens were not interned as Netherlands was neutral during World War I, the story changed to German instead. Could it have just been a glip of details, or a more elaborate story? As late as 2004, he claimed not to know anything about her at all. I think that gives more validity to the story, because that means that he actually had some kind of interaction, because he had an interaction with the spirit of a European girl in a dream, and then she became more and more defined according to a prior legend. So I think that kind of gives it more validity to that. It's a haunted shrine, and he was following the orders of ghost hunting that coincided with what was already said and known. Although proof that a German family ran a coffee plantation on Pulau Ubin once is not proven that they ran it until being detained because of the war. According to the Singapore and Straits Directory, the only plantation on the island in 1914 was run by an Anglo-Irish with no woman recorded as living there. Of course, that could also mean that they simply destroyed so many records from public options of viewing, because of so many decades of war and misunderstanding that, seriously, who knows what would be available. So anyway, the first mention of the grave on Pulau Ubin was actually in 1985 in a Malayan newspaper that told the story of a princess from Java that fled to the island and died there. She was said to haunt the hill on a hantu puteri, meaning a ghost princess, as a hantu puteri, She was said to haunt the hill as a hantu puteri, meaning a ghost princess, seducing the many quarry workers to meet a terrible fate. The article included a picture of the shrine today known as the German Girl Shrine, but also this article, as well as the story itself, lacks proper resources. I've actually, now that I read that, I can't prove it, have heard the story of the Javan girl from Singapore. I have some kind of strange connection to Singapore for no reason that I can't explain. And I've heard that legend of a Javanese young princess who died out in the wilderness area, and they had a shrine to her. So I'm thinking right at this very moment, I didn't read down to the end. Sorry, I usually come a bit unprepared. I'm thinking at this very moment that possibly maybe it's just to show that, so many vague things happened during the plantation years of the island as it was changing, that somebody decided to put a shrine as time went on to the poor young children, mostly young females that had died. I wonder if there's any equivalent to young boys, I don't really know too much else about anything like that, because that would, they would be telling the legend. Maybe it's a language barrier discussion. They would be telling the legend in terms of just meaning Germanic for meaning European related persons who had, died, influenced the shrine, and then had come into contact with the Javanese princess who died there. Okay, my throw in the hat theory. Anyway, so for now, the haunted Barbie doll in Pulau Ubin belongs to a young girl that may or may not rest here. Better safe than sorry. There are so many haunted Barbie doll stories and enshrined haunted Barbie doll stories that I think it might ethically have a real meaning, however vague the actual original story might seem. I think it probably has more than a little bit of validity to it. So anyway, the research on it, let me click on that link. Should I click on that link? Let's click on it. So anyway, the link clicks over to an article that is called Unraveling the Mystery of the German Girls Shrine. And it basically just retells exactly what was just read on the Moon Mausoleum site story that I just read. But it goes into some bigger detail. And unfortunately, it just keeps presenting ideas discrediting the possibility that there was any validity in anybody building a haunted Barbie doll shrine there. To me, it follows immensely for some reason because, as I say, I think it is a more group ideology that's being miscarried by probably linguistic cultural barriers for the fact of that it's a long time standing legend and it's never really been recovered, and it covers a lot of political ground that's not really recoverable to proof or action. But so at some point, the Barbie doll appears because somebody physically was motivated to believe there was a spiritual drive to go and put that there and then have it worshipped. But maybe that man had the spiritual authority to do that. I don't really know the story myself. So from the point of view of, the paranormal activity, which is how I'm looking at it, it seems to have the validity for the paranormal activity. Things appear, don't appear, seem to be real, aren't real, and there are just too many, factoids or too many stray facts that keep leading back to the same ideas that it was a possibility. But I think that the misinterpreted facts might also be for the spiritual paranormalism, that the spirits there probably don't really want to be remembered personally or worshipped personally. They just want a memory of what was their place in time and how it was probably washed away and so hazardous. I think that's how they couldn't be a part of what their life might have meant to be because of all the political unrest in the universe at the time. Anyway, I'm going to post the link to this article, the second article, when I post the picture for the Billabong Bunyip. The next story I'm going to read is also from Moon Mausoleum, and it's a pretty famous legend. It's out of the section of Australian-related stories, and it's the possession of Leda the doll. I was about to say the Leda doll, of Leta the doll. Described as the doll from hell, Leda the doll in Australia is the cause of strange things, but although a scary one, the owner will never part with the possessed doll and has today a very strong social media profile and is traveling the country. Haunted dolls have long been the subject of fascination and fear throughout time across the globe. These eerie objects made in our image are believed to be inhabited by restless spirits or possess supernatural powers. What is it with dolls originally made for children to play with that traps into something so scary? With their lifeless eyes and unsettling presence, haunted dolls have captured the imagination of many and have become the stuff of nightmares. Stories of dolls moving on their own, whispering or causing inexplicable occurrences have been passed down through generations, fueling the belief in their paranormal existence. Whether these accounts are true or merely urban legends, one thing is certain: haunted dolls continue to both terrify and intrigue those who dare to encounter them. This is the case with the curious Leda the doll in Australia that have captivated the country on the account of being creepy and allegedly haunted. The haunted story of Leda the doll. The owner of Leda the doll, Kerry Walton, claims he found the doll under the floor of the porch in an abandoned house in Wagga Wagga in New South Wales, Australia. He was going there for his grandmother's funeral and decided to go exploring the neighboring house that always had haunted him when he visited. The doll is of wood and is child-sized, with a peculiar face, dressed in green with a long braid. When Walton first saw the doll, he was as terrified as we are when seeing the doll. That was back in 1972 when Lita the doll came back to live with Walton and his family in Brisbane, where the doll has lived ever since. The origin of the name Lita the doll came about when he was transporting it to its new home. When he put the doll in the trunk of his car to drive home, he heard movement and a scream. "Let me out!" That was what the doll screamed. He heard from the back of his trunk where only the doll was. I'm assuming it was the doll screaming. And ever since then, the doll was called Letta the doll. Oh, I guess it's Letta. I'm sorry, I actually haven't heard I've only read stories about this. And since then, the doll has apparently been the cause of many strange things happening in the home of Queensland. In the home in Queensland. Brisbane is in Queensland, and the doll was originally in North South Wales, okay, which is just south of Queensland on the east coast of Australia. The doll is a peculiar one with a grin that will stay with you for a long time. According to the person that found her and so called her, and is the so-called carer, the doll is haunted by the spirit of a drowned boy. It has some strange features. I'm also going to try and put this picture on a separate post on my community page posts on my channel. But it's a pretty famous face of a doll. This is a woman's face, and to me it has some very genuine features that are very masculine, very menacing look, almost lifelike. It genuinely looks like a carved out idol from a western kind of maybe Indian tribe. Actually, you can see some Western Indian idols. I mean, like from the North American continent, in history pictures that look almost exactly like this doll. So it has a very Native American, is what I'm saying, kind of aura to it, just in its face. I know that what I'm saying is true. I wish I could prove some of the things that I'm saying, but I doubt that looking into it, you'd be able to call me a fool, because it's genuinely has the look of many kinds of seeming North American carved idols. Very seriously. I think so. I don't think that's right. And also it's showing its teeth. It's grinning as if it had died just at the moment that it was frozen in time. Like it had been a sort of maybe like a pygmy-sized adult sort of person, and it had grinned and just died and froze that way as an idol. Very menacing looking, kind of terrifying. But this is a woman, according to the legend, and to me, it just looks like an authentic Native American male doll idol that I've seen before. So I'm sorry I keep repeating that, but every time I see that doll, I'm overwhelmed with the idea, and I finally decided I'd say it sometime, so I have. So, okay, going on with what they're writing, which is their story. Together, Letta the doll and Kerry Walton have appeared on numerous television shows where he claims there is something paranormal over the doll. He says more than one person has seen the doll move right in front of them. There are also signs of the doll's moving on its own, as it's left visible marks around the house as well as under the shoes of the doll. The children living with the doll were also understandably terrified of the strange new addition to the household and said they could hear the doll move around. You can get the opportunity to meet with the doll, however. There are reports of having nightmares as well as feeling nauseous after an encounter with Letta the doll. The owner of the doll is traveling around with it when not in their home in Warwick and charges money to get a picture taken. The doll is so famous now it even has its own Facebook account. Walton himself has vowed to never get rid of the doll, although he has tried. Once, to get his family out of a financial situation, he tried to sell the doll for $400. But when it got to him taking the doll out of the car, he physically couldn't do it, as if a force of some sort was stopping him. As well as a Facebook account as a true influencer, Letta the doll also has gotten an Instagram profile where they post family-like pictures. Another claim that Walton has is about the origin of the doll and why this particular object is haunted. He apparently had the doll examined by a professional and found that the doll itself was around 200 years old, and the hair of the doll was made with real human hair, allegedly, specifically from Eastern European gypsies. On further examination, in some way or another, he found that the doll was haunted by a restless spirit of a drowned boy. The doll is supposedly possessed with the spirit of this boy, and in some variation of the origin of the doll, it was the gypsies that placed the soul of the boy inside the doll. And according to Walton, he thinks the drowning is the reason why it always rains when they go traveling for their shows. That's interesting. I didn't know that about this doll. It is so menacingly haunting. Every time I look at it, it's difficult for me to read anything about it. I can only read a few things, and then I just feel repelled because I feel like the enormous influence of the doll just doesn't want me to know it. I don't know, but for some reason today when I saw that, I thought, wow, I wonder if I'll be able to read this, and I haven't had any problem with this so far tonight, so... but it's interesting that so they're saying Eastern European gypsies first made it, and then it was brought down into Australia. Then maybe my preconditioning thought about how and why it was made could be because my favorite excuse for there being trafficking indigenes between Europe and North America, of course, are Ottoman indigenes, and so possibly gypsies from like Bohemia traveling out, they could have easily found a community of natives between themselves and come up with the same kind of idols built and used in the same way, because I know that about even more than 200 years ago, there were still wooden idols made in North America that were made just in the old ancient Egyptian tradition of, restoring a soul into a wooden idol, so that to preserve the spirit to the living, the memory of the spirit to the living. And then, of course, that kind of backfires because they might, if you believe in spirits, they might just fall into the illness of a spirit world where they don't care to be in conference with the living anymore, and things could not turn out exactly the same anyway as they intended. So that was the end of that story. I thought it was interesting, and I'm glad for the opportunity that I finally got to study that a little bit more, because I told you I myself have a strange reaction just to the sight of the doll, and I'm fascinated by the Annabelle legend, that's on all the movies. And so I know that there are some paranormalists who connect the spiritual influence of the Annabelle doll for some reason that I can't get, but I can, on a spiritual level, it's the same kind of like energy is what I think I'm saying, to also the energy and the power that's transferring its, sort of paranormal magnetic influence into the regular energies of people who are living, is sort of the same kind of possessive community. Maybe, I'm not sure. I like studying those things on a very superficial level. So I should always I think that I should always mention that whatever my observations are, they aren't extremely professional. I mean, I'm not trying to be a crackpot of any kind. I would never do that. So I think it's well thought, but it's not actually studied to tell you that it's excellent authority for anybody. So, okay, we're going to go on in a minute. Since I'm featuring legend stories of haunted dolls today, found another one on the same Moon Mausoleum site, and I thought I'd read it. I haven't had a minute to background it. My narrations are a little bit unprepared, and I keep saying that. So this is about Okiku, the haunted doll of Hokkaido. The Okiko doll is a legend of a haunted doll that grows hair in Japan and is preserved in a temple looked after by monks. Allegedly, it is haunted by the ghost of a girl that once received it as a gift. There is something about dolls that makes us fall into a confusion about what is and isn't real, and we both love them and hate them in equal measure. The haunted doll trope is one of the most famous and creepiest. There is something about the almost lifelike object that takes us through the uncanny valley and makes us believe that maybe, just maybe, there might be something more behind those glass eyes. This is the case with the Okiku doll, a type of Ichimatsu doll, which is a type of traditionally dress-up doll in Japan, often clad in nice kimonos with dark glass eyes. The chubby-cheeked dolls are as cute as they are creepy, and perhaps the creepiest that have ever been named is Okiko that lives now in a monastery well looked after by the monks. This haunted doll must not be confused by the ghost story of Okiko, the maid. At first glance, Okiko just looks like an old doll, weathered by time with frayed hair and old clothes like so many dolls forgotten by their children. But there is a legend surrounding this particular haunted doll, and the legend keeps growing apparently just like the doll's hair. The two girls. There are some variations of this legend, as there often is when they happened a long time ago. The most told version of it, though, starts in Hokkaido, north in Japan, in 1918 at the Taishi Expo in August, bustling with life, people, and stuff to buy, including dolls. A teenager named Aikichi Suzuki bought a doll for his younger sister in the shopping street of Tanukigoji, probably said that wrong, in the city. Often the girl is given the same name as the doll, but in most Japanese sources they were not named the same, but the girl's name was either Kikuko, or Kiyoko. The 17-year-old brother was visiting Sapporo for a marine exhibition, and the doll almost called for him to be bought for his dearest little sister. The 2 or 3-year-old sister grew very fond of the doll that was a gift from her brother, and they became inseparable. The porcelain doll had an okappa hairstyle, which was common for traditional dolls with cropped hair around the jawline and a short fringe over the forehead. It was around 40 centimeters tall and dressed in a traditional kimono. I'm looking at a picture of her, and she's gorgeous. She carried it everywhere and slept with it every night the following year, but the childlike play would come to an abrupt end. The little sister died, however, after falling ill the following year after some complications of a severe fever, very likely to be the yellow fever or the Spanish flu, as it was ravaging across the globe during the time period of the time. Or in some cases, pneumonia is also mentioned as the cause of her death. The haunted doll at the family altar. And the family initially wanted to place the doll together with their daughter in the grave, but wasn't allowed, or in some sources simply forgot to put the doll in the coffin. The family mourned the loss of the daughter. The family mourned the loss of the daughter and placed the doll in the family kamidana altar instead, a practice common in some Japanese households to remember and honor the dead. The Okiko could look out at the mourning family that paid her tribute as if Okiko was their own daughter. So they put her on an altar to honor their dead daughter in their house, with the doors of the prepared altar open so the doll could look at them. And, this was to signify that their daughter could look at them. This is the same ritual that I was saying was very common in Native American. This is descended from Egyptian dynasties, to remember the dead by creating, carving a wooden idol, and then having a ritual in which the spirit is given honor into the wooden idol, and so the dead spirit is possibly preserved and called forward to remain in spiritual connection to the remaining part of the family. And then, of course, in the Egyptian times, this was to bring everybody all at one time. This tradition came after the embalming ritual that you can read in the Book of the Dead, in which they kept embalmed corpses in family tombs open to living room sites, and it was practiced ritual of honor to idolize the dead in their spiritual lives, and then to make a plan to cross over in death to the next plane, all as a family. In later millennia, century on down to so many indigenous practices, and I would guess that this was also contemporary to many more millennia behind that time. There was just a wooden idol made that inferred the spiritual dead to the idol, and then this was brought into the family conference, and then at some point in the antiquity, it was a law. This is completely lost antiquity, that the entire family would become a family of wooden idols, and they could trespass the valleys of death into their new lives together. So that was actually for why the altar preservation rituals were commanded to being, held together. These traditions kind of went on up to the end of the 19th century, so about to the end of about the 1800s, and so many places continued them over to just about the time of the First World War. I think most of those practices were destroyed because they were turning into some serious magical evil as things were becoming more technological. It was, like it was magicide, I think, technological magicide that was being used by corrupt persons more than... I guess that's probably what I'm feeling about the story that we were telling before about the girl over in Singapore at her altar, and possibly what the spiritual value of the story and the legend might have something to do about was the end of some more pagan traditions in favor of a technological future, and how dangerously difficult these transitions were for communities, people, villages, cities, everybody, everywhere, to just simply abruptly put off the past and start a new technological future. And yet this is what happened. So I think that, it's well enough to say that it could be said that there was enough corruption between some things that the practices were not clear, and many things entered into some kind of a possession. So anyway, so going on with their story, the family prayed every day by the altar that they had in their house, and started to notice strange things about Okiku. According to them, they found out that the hair of the doll was growing just like human hair, and the short Okapa haircut grew longer, just like the hair grows of a 3-year-old child, and how the child's hair would have grown. At night, they dreamt about Okiku, and when they woke in the morning, sometimes they would find the haunted doll sitting by their side without having been put there. The strange occurrences started to get more intense and scarier, with light flickering, banging in the house, and strange voices and noises. The scary manifestations were usually around certain dates, like their dead daughter's birthday and the day she died. This led them to believe that the soul of their daughter was not at peace yet and had entered the doll. They had shamans come to the house and meet Okiku and confirm it, and believed that they had to appease the spirit through the doll. Offered and displayed in Manenji Temple. They kept Okiku on their family altar until 1938, when the family decided it was time for them to move away from the Hokkaido. In some sources, they moved even further north in Sakhalin, an island between Japan and Russia. They felt that the best for the spirit of Okiku would be to remain on the island where she had been born and spent her few years alive. It was then the family decided to offer the doll to Manenji Temple, located in Iwamizawa. The monks promised to care for the haunted doll and pay it the respect it had received at the family altar. The Okiku doll was given a special wooden box, like at the home altar, and placed at the altar with the monks looking after and taking care of her every need. The monks at the temple noticed, too, that the hair of the haunted doll kept growing. When it was around 25 centimeters, they decided to cut it for the first time, and the doll's hair was cut many more times over the years as the hair just continued to grow. Apparently, some of the monks at the temple had a dream that the doll wished for the hair to be trimmed regularly. And after the war, when many Japanese were deported from Sakhalin, the brother who bought the doll came back and saw for himself how the doll had changed over the years. When he saw what the doll had become, he asked that the haunted doll had to stay at the temple permanently. The science of the hair. And dolls have always had some sort of an unfair reputation as haunted across the globe. And in Japan, this type of doll is no stranger to having supernatural and haunted rumors surrounding them. But this one is by far the most famous example in the country and of its kind. Some sources tried to claim that the doll has been examined by scientific tests that the monks have sent out to have tested, showing that the haunted doll's hair really is of a human toddler and growing just like one, although no one can explain just how this is happening. The place of the supposed test was sent to Hokkaido University School of Medicine, according to some sources. There are, of course, non-paranormal theories as to why the hair seemingly grows from the haunted doll. The use of human hair on dolls is well known by phenomena, especially before synthesized hair became the norm. One way they did it was to fold a long human hair, making it seem like strands of hair on the doll. Over time, the strand of hair can glide out of place and look like it has grown. But then again, it is supposed to stop at one point in time, not just to continue to grow indefinitely. So what is happening at the temple where the doll is still displayed? visiting the haunted doll. You can still visit the Meninji Temple in Japan to see the haunted doll whose hair is reaching its knee. But you are not allowed to photograph it, as the doll apparently has told you that it doesn't like that at all. We must simply... That's very interesting. We must simply just take the monk's words for the strange doll. The legend of the doll is continuing to grow and has been the base of many movies and horror tales, as well as the traditional kabuki plays. According to the legend, the power of the haunted doll is only growing bit by bit, just like the hair grows. Another rumor surrounding the doll nowadays is that if you get close enough to the haunted doll, you can also now see the growing of human teeth. Wow. That's something else. I mean, if you like to believe things like that, those spiritual crossovers into some kind of a, a living form of tradition, it's something that you can wild out on just thinking about it, and I don't know, maybe even get some kind of spiritual insight. I think that's the entire take on some things. And, as for the horror and paranormal part, people like to be wowed. I mean, I know I enjoy the horror genre, but that's still, to try and understand something about a spiritual order, however much paranormal it interfaces with our own lives, because, it's pretty obvious not everything is just a cut and dry time of day. There's a lot of energy in the universe, and you could probably call it spiritual, right? Okay, we're going to read another story in a minute. Okay, so my last story on this video clip here is going to be about the Gonjeom Psychiatric Hospital in South Korea. I'm just going to introduce it. There was a movie from South Korea. It was a reality movie called Haunted Asylum. I don't know if anybody's seen it. I like reality films, like real life reality, where they script out a real scene and people go missing, and of course it's been scripted. But I thought it was really excellently made. I should have checked. I don't know if they're claiming that it was scripted or if people actually went missing when they were doing a paranormal encounter. But I think it was scripted because it was wildly made of technological artifacts. So it was really a very excellent film. I wish I had researched it at this point of my commitment. You know what? I'm going to look it up before I start reading the story, so I have a better story to tell. But so I was going to read about another possessed doll, but I'll save that for another time when I do more possessed dolls. And I'm going to read this one to close out this clip. Okay, so I got this reference from Wikipedia. I feel a lot better about it. It's called, the movie was actually called Gonjeom Haunted Asylum. It's Korean, from 2018. It's a 2018 South Korean found footage supernatural horror film directed by Jung Boom-sik. Based on real-life psychiatric hospital of the same name, it stars several Korean big-time stars, I guess, in the lead roles. The narrative centers around a horror web series crew that travels to an abandoned asylum for a live broadcast in order to, gain reviews and publicity. The film opened theatrically in South Korea on March 28th of 2018 and in the United States on April 13th of 2018. I thought it was really good. Commercial success. It also became the third most watched horror film in South Korea after, these other two, A Tale of Two Sisters and Phone. I love Korean movies. I just love this, especially Korean paranormal movies. So it's an actual movie, but it's made to seem like it was, teched up real story, so it's really excellent. Okay, I'll actually read the account from the Moon Mausoleum website in a minute. Arguably the most famous haunted place in South Korea is the Gonjeom Psychiatric Hospital. When it was still standing, it attracted a lot of ghost hunters, curious tourists, and urban explorers. What was it behind the place that drew all these people? One of the allegedly most haunted places in South Korea was the Gonjeom Psychiatric Hospital. It was closed down in the 1990s, and the owner left the country after not documenting for the public the reason why it closed down, according to myth. And the legends, rumors, and tales started spinning, everything from murderous patients, mad doctors, and so on. So spooky did the world find this place that even foreign TV station CNN called it one of the world's most freakiest places in 2012. Really making it an international destination for thrill seekers. Today, however, the empty building has been torn down. But before that, it managed to become one of the biggest hotspots for ghost seekers in Korea. Let's see how the abandoned hospital became known as one of the most haunted places in the country and unravel some of the legends it became known for before being demolished with nothing left but its legend. And there's a picture of the abandoned asylum. It says, this is how the abandoned hospital looked before being demolished in 2018, hidden away between trees at the foot of a mountain. I'll put this picture into my notes on my community post area. Abandoned asylum in the mountains. Gonjiam Psychiatric Hospital was a building near the small city of Gwangju, outside of Seoul, in a residential area at the foot of a mountain. The old ruins of the abandoned hospital was just remote enough to be considered a spooky and haunted asylum tucked away in the mountains and close enough to visit from big places like Seoul to spread the word of ghosts and mad doctors. Much to the locals' nuisance, as they have hated the rumors about the place that have drawn people from all over the world to trespass to have a look for themselves. According to those who tried to find their way there, the locals around the place are not so forthcoming with giving directions to the site. This, of course, has fueled the excitement for the urban explorers and paranormal researchers alike, and every year thousands of people broke through the barriers to get a glimpse of the allegedly haunted asylum. The Mad Doctor at Gonjiam Psychiatric Hospital, this is actually what Haunted Asylum is about. The Mad Doctor is preying on anybody who comes there to find him. I love that kind of genre movie. Realistic ghost sightings and all that whether they're scripted or not. And it was amazing, all the technological display they had on trying to prove, the Mad Doctor. It was good. So what really went down inside Gonjiam Psychiatric Hospital before closing? Let's have a look at what the legend claims happened inside of the supposed haunted asylum. The Gonjiam Psychiatric Hospital first opened its doors in 1961 and was a full-functioning one all the way up to July of 1996. Nurses took care of the patients on the 3-floor hospital, and the doctors made their rounds, just as expected. But over the course of the last decade, the hospital was in operation. Mysterious things kept happening. According to the legends, the place left. The story goes that the patients started dying mysteriously without a good explanation. In addition to dying patients, there were also some of the staff that went missing and turned up dead in the rooms inside of the hospital. From a medical standpoint, it was first believed that it could be an infection, seeing as it also afflicted some of the patients' family members as well. But no, it turned out to be something much more sinister. Apparently, it was the owner of the asylum who went insane himself and kept many of the patients prisoners and killing them one by one until he was stopped. It was until the government came to investigate because of the missing staff that he was caught and fled to America, causing the hospital to shut down. There were also rumors about the director of the hospital took his own life after being found out to be behind the dead patients and missing staff, becoming one of the souls haunting the place. But even after the Mad Doctor was caught, the souls of the victims could never be at peace, long after the hospital closed down and became forgotten for a long time, as time ate away the building. According to the locals, screams had been heard coming from the abandoned building, along with mysterious figures lurking around the dock hospital, believing to be the haunted souls of the asylum. Poor victims that turned to vengeful spirits haunting the premise and seeking revenge on those who wronged them. The people that dared to visit the haunted asylum to check out the stories told of scary encounters they could only explain as paranormal. There were reports of dropping temperatures when it suddenly turned cold on a hot summer's day, opening and closing of the heavy doors without a draft, and they kept hearing voices of people that weren't there. The legend of the haunted hospital grows. Although Gonjiam Psychiatric Hospital was such a well-known place, the facts of the asylum's history is hazy, especially after it had been mixed in with unverified legends and blockbuster movies. In 2008, a ghost hunter show showcased the hospital where they brought on shamans and reported that there indeed was something going on in the place. It was not only the documentaries that were made of the former hospital and helped to make it a well-known building in the entire country and beyond. It was not the only, I beg your pardon. It was not the only documentary made of the former hospital that helped make it a well-known building in the entire country and beyond. Okay. The culmination and peak of the legend must have been when the movies like commercial successful Gonjiam Haunted Asylum, the one that I'm telling about, from 2018, didn't help to quench the rumors about the asylum being haunted by ghosts. Although the movie itself was primarily filmed at Busan National Maritime High School, a supposed haunted place in itself, it capitalized on the legend behind Gonjiam. Train to Busan was something else too, but that was about zombies, so okay. It was kind of a big controversy when Gonjiam Haunted Asylum came out in theaters, as the owner of the building tried to stop the movie as he feared it would affect the property value. But he lost, and the movie was aired, making it a paranormal hotspot to visit once again, despite of the owner trying to keep people out. Barbed wire cameras and warning signs have tried to keep visitors out since it closed down to no avail, and the legend would not stop until the whole building disappeared. So even as far as that movie being slightly relevant, it was filmed at a different location, so I should check my facts, but I like to get involved in the fiction, so I'm more than willing to state that. Unraveling the legends behind Gonjiam. So why did Gonjiam Psychiatric Hospital close down then, if not for a mad doctor, missing nurses, and murdered patients? More mundane reasons like financial difficulties, unsanitary conditions, and big problems with the sewage systems, according to the owners of the building, was most likely the case. And with the water pipes not up to modern standard, they had no choice but to pay up or shut down. The director that was rumored to have taken his own life had really just started to work at another hospital after Gonjiam Psychiatric Hospital closed down, the director of the hospital. The children of the director inherited the hospital, but the cost of operating the hospital was too big, and they decided to let it fall into ruin, perhaps not realizing the stories that the stories of an abandoned building can create, so much uprising. In regards to the missing staff and murdered patients at the hospital, there are no evidence. And in regards to the missing staff and murdered patients at the hospital, there are no evidence for any of that at all. According to a journalist making a piece on the Gonjiam Psychiatric Hospital, they found out there had been no suspicious reports about the hospital over the years about missing people and patients. Isn't it horrible when somebody like me says something like, oh, how disappointing that all the terror that had supposedly taken place had never taken place. What a moribund thing to say, and I apologize. But that's good. It makes good fiction. The source to this article delving into the truth behind the claims was, among others, a policeman in the local police district. In fact, the patients that resided in Gonjiam were supposedly transferred to Yeonjin Mental Hospital after the hospital closed down. I just think that movie was just like a wonderful performance, on possession more than anything else. Because unfortunately, we can't say that there aren't any cases of possession, and they aren't just demonic possession, but they're spiritual possession, And I just really thought it was excellent in showing almost like real life casework on how that happens. And it's a complete transformation of the person's, self-control on their body, and something else is controlling their mind, their body, their identity. It's taking over their identity. So I guess that's what I mean. I don't mean like, oh, darn, all those horrible things didn't happen. So anyway, although alive in legend, the former hospital and legendary haunted building is no longer there for those curious about the legend to see for yourself. And we have to make do with movies, picture, and old footage. In 2018, Gonjiam was demolished the same year that the movie made the legend last forever on film. There are plans that it may be a new apartment building at the place. Wow. Why would you hope to live there? Oh my gosh. Further erasing the history and creating a new one at the foot of the mountain. I don't think I could ever get convinced to do that. I don't know. So perhaps now the legend of Gonjiam Psychiatric Hospital will die out as an actual place and story, as the building can no longer attract the curious people looking for a thrilling legend. That's a shame. The building is gone and it's a big open field. It could just be like a reduction field for just a paranormal outing field. There's probably not enough commerce in that, but I don't know if it's already taken to that purpose. No, I shouldn't say things like that. Okay. Or maybe the spirits of the place now just lost their home. The opinion where I'm speaking at doesn't agree with what I had to say, that it should just remain as a sacred or unsacred paranormal ground. Just, an open question to a paranormal site. But if nobody agrees with me, then nobody agrees with me. Okay, well, that's my last reading for tonight. And have a good evening.